Many authors write from their wounds. But what would happen if you wrote from your healing? You would change the world, elevate and transform. And that's what would happen. Today on the Believe Retreat, we are trying to change the world one healing story at a time. That's for today, for tomorrow, and on after that. Let's meet our special guest today. My co host, Francine, is there. Heidi's not here today, but Francine and I are going to have a fantastic conversation with our special guest, Hal Eisenberg. Here's Francine. Here comes Hal. And hello. Hey, we're all here. Welcome to the Believe Retreat, Hal.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I love that introduction. I'm already like, wow.
And I want to give Francine, well, no, you thought of that too. Yes, healing, writing from your healing. Let me share with everyone your latest book, your bestseller, Whispers in the Rain. So today we're going to talk about your process in bringing this fabulous book to us, and of course, how it aligns with so many other wonderful things that you have going on that are really going to make a difference. So, Francine, you have some great questions in line. Why don't you get us started?
Well, the first question I always love to ask authors is what made you want to write a book in the first place?
So I'm going to start by being honest and truthful. I didn't want to write a book. Yeah, the story behind Whispers, I had written 4 books. I did a 4-book series called Beautiful Souls that was very much a book I needed to write. And it all came from my wounds. It came from the pain, the stories that I hadn't sorted through to just try to kind of figure out like who I was. Then I was diagnosed with, cancer almost 7 years ago. And that opened up a whole world. I met some really incredible spiritual mentors, and I started getting in touch with energy and frequency. And I went on this healing journey to Mexico. And I had a dream while I was on this healing journey. And I was like, oh, wow, like this would be really a great message to write a LinkedIn article about and just like help to inspire people. So I sat down, started writing the article. The article got longer. It got longer. And I realized I don't think this is an article. Like this is turning into a book. And I resisted. I was like, I do not want to go through the book writing process again. And yeah, but yeah, that's the story. That's the answer to your question.
So, what you're telling people out there, if you have a story to tell and you're resisting it, just go ahead and do it already.
Absolutely.
So, tell me, once you finally decided, okay, fine, it's a book, how did that process go for you?
It was just pouring. It was pouring out of me. I realized in that moment that the healing that was in me needed to be shared with the world. The universe was using me as a channel to say that everybody has this love and light inside of them, and you have to share that. And that's always kind of been who I'm about in the different works that I do and the different hats that I wear. I really always have wanted people to see their power, their inner light, and to know that their life matters. That's what this whole thing has been about. But there's more steps to it, right? There's more steps when you're writing a book. There's a statistic out there. I forget the exact statistic, but it's like 95% of people who want to write a book never actually write a book. Only 5% actually get it, written and released. So even if you get it to that point, then the question is, well, what are you going to do with it? Um,
Right.
right. And that's the bigger, I think that's the bigger conversation behind Whispers, behind who I am, and behind what I want to do, for the planet and the universe.
How that is exactly that's the direction that we're going in today, because our intention with the Believe Retreat, and of course our huge impact publishing event in September in Jacksonville, Florida, is to let people know that once you have written your words down and shared what's in your mind and your heart and your experiences and your hopes, dreams, aspirations, and the change you want to make in the world, well, you just have a book, but there's more to it than that. It's the follow up, the follow through, and the action that you take, incorporating what you've written into your real mission. So, how tell us about that? I've heard some great things about what you've been doing to promote the book, opportunities you're taking advantage of. So, tell us how this is working so that your this publication is it's not just an Amazon bestseller, but it's going to touch people's lives. What are you doing to that end?
Well, the first thing I'm doing is I'm in full trust. I feel like I'm still in the beginning stages, right? I'm doing a lot of podcast appearances. I think there's a mindset piece here. It's like I feel really blessed that this was an Amazon bestseller. That was unexpected, and that's like also I think validation from the universe that this message needs to be out there. But the mindset is this book is my business card, right? I now have this tool and resource that I would rather give this book away to free to everybody, right? And meet people and speak to them in person and inspire them. And that's what's starting to have once you have that mindset and that intention, for the book, these opportunities are now coming up. Speaking on more podcasts, being part of the Visionary Leadership Conference, global leadership conference in November, where I'm going to be speaking, and it's going to be streamed. I'll be live in Miami, but I'll be streaming live around the world, which is really exciting.
Oh yeah, the
Speaking to
Global Vision Conference with Johnny
Yes,
Regan's Johnny's Movies and Popcorn. Yes, Global Vision
yes,
Conference. Yes,
yeah.
that's going to be
I believe you're part
wonderful.
of that too, right?
Exactly. That's so exciting. Yes. So
Yes.
yeah, keep going. Yes, you have some things lined up, appearances, personal
Yeah.
appearances.
Yeah, it's about getting in front of more people, doing workshops, doing trainings. I was the keynote speaker at the University of Connecticut a couple of weeks ago. I was blessed to have the book presented on the Times Square billboard. So it's all these little things. I'm going to be doing a launch in Toronto, Canada in mid-November. And then I'm working on the final touches for my first education book, because I'm always about inspiring people. Whispers in the Rain is about inspiring people to find their light on their journey. And I also do that every day through education. So that my real passion is wanting to transform the education system. So I have a book coming out surrounding how to support, youth in education. And that book is going to be released, in the spring. So I'm going to do a massive US launch in the spring with both books.
Okay, you just hit on
Exciting.
something that I want to unpack a little bit
Sure.
because you have this grand vision, much like I do. My vision is that kids have all the confidence in the world before they get to middle school, before they fall into wanting to be like everybody else,
Yeah.
that they have the tools to embrace their uniqueness so they don't fall to the peer pressure and the bullying.
Yeah.
And my children's book series, that's just one tool I use to do that. I have the Confidence Club for Kids, and I have Parents Talk to give parents tips on how to help their kids. And it's all this grand vision in multiple launches, multiple
Yeah.
segments to bringing this to the world. And
Yeah.
that's what I just heard from you. So, can you expand a little bit about your grand vision and how these little book launches are leading up to that?
Yeah, it's not even just the book launches. There's podcasts and weekly articles and monthly newsletter, and the grand vision. You start with the grand vision and you work backwards. It's kind of been my philosophy. But the grand vision is I'm looking to transform the education system, because I believe the conversation is right now we have an education system that was built, to meet the needs of the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah.
Industrial Revolution was a very, very long time ago, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I feel that we can connect the issues that we're seeing in society today to the education system still running that same system, because the people in the broken systems now, like healthcare and you know, corporate America and justice, they're all being run by people who went through that broken system, right? So my large vision is, if we transform the system, if we start to put students in the center of learning and teach them from their passions, and show them what they're about and that their voice matters. Once they realize their voice matters and we teach them from that perspective, then the conversation is, education becomes about moving humanity forward, right? And we're at a crossroads now. We need that. That's my belief. That's the big vision.
My mantra is breaking the cycle of negative childhood programming.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I
You two
love
are
that.
so
Wow.
aligned.
This
I
just
love that
became an
we
education podcast.
It's so important to me as well. I was active in my kids' education in the public school system, in a substitute teacher, and then I homeschooled my kids as well. And now I'm working on educating my grandbabies. They're going to be 2 and 3 years old this fall, and I've always thought about how antiquated some of the things are, even when it comes to the way that the school year is based on an agricultural society when you needed the children to work the fields in the summer. Well, our kids aren't working the fields in the summer anymore, and so there are so many aspects of the education system, you're right, that were designed to just make someone capable of having certain types of jobs, right, with a certain economy, a certain uh, world system of things that we had been living in, but times are changing.
Yeah.
And now, when you're in the schools and you see the lack of emotional intelligence, of the socialization, the spiritual aspect of things, the holistic, healthy experience that brings whole children to school ready to learn. No, because there's so much going on outside of the current framework that's affecting negative outcomes in the system. You'll always have your shining stars. You're always going to have your high achievers, valedictorian with 5.2 GPAs with all those advanced placement classes, etc. But what about everyone else? What about the behaviors? What about the broken homes, not even having something to eat? Things like that. So I like the fact that, no, we have to address these issues that have come up in the past 200 years. And let's get into the 21st century with what our children need to be successful. So I just want to say amen to that.
Not only the past 200 years, but just think about it. We've just come out of a pandemic.
Yeah.
All of these children who were stuck in the house doing online schooling are behind in the socialization. You have kids going to middle school right now who missed a big 2, 3 year chunk of
Mhm.
learning how to be social and being in a community.
Yeah.
So not only do we have an antique education system, but now we have this ability of every child who missed a formative part of their school years.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The pandemic was a really fascinating experience, especially looking back on it now. What it did was, it took the issues that were always there, like underneath boiling, and it brought the issues to the surface. And what happened is, when we came out of the pandemic slowly, people were trying to get back to normal, whatever normal meant. And how that manifested in the education system was, kids have started to rebel, and started going, expressing that rebellion through a multitude of issues, that we always label as the problem, but it's really the symptom. Things like cutting school, and doing drugs, and getting into unhealthy, risky behaviors. you know that those are symptoms, right? The root of the issue is honestly the system itself. And the fact that we're not having a conversation, we are in small parts, and I'm blessed to be part of some communities and be part of a bigger model that is making some real impact, especially research wise. But it's still small compared to what's happening, across the board in education right now. And we need to, and this is where my faith comes in, and this is part of going back to whispers in the rain. We're going to get to a point where we have to say, and we're starting to say, like, enough is enough. Like, we're just looking at the world and going, does it have to burn down to
Mm,
rebuild? And
right.
maybe, but I feel there's a lot of people out there like us that want to see healing in the world, that want to have the conversation of what's possible, instead of going, woe is me, the world's burning down. Cool. The world's burning down. What's possible here? What can we build to, save our culture, to save humanity, to have a better future for our kids and our grandkids and their grandkids? And I think that's the conversation we need to have. And that's what my hope is for this book and the following books that are going to come out. I have like a 10-year strategy that is unfolding,
Ooh, 10
step by step.
years.
Yeah, no,
Wow.
absolutely. Absolutely. And I see it clearly. It's clarity.
Talking about vision, yes, that's why we
Yes.
need to see you at the Global Vision Conference because we can
Yes.
all take notes. And I would like to see if you could help paint a picture for us, Hal,
Sure.
of like bridging the gap. So you started out writing as part of your healing journey, right? Writing from your wounds, your
Yeah.
insights, because pain, a lot of times it does make us reflect and get deep, right? And
Yeah.
then you're writing from your healing. You have a 10-year plan and some real impact. Will you help us connect the dots how one thing might lead to another if it does, but just how can we connect these patterns for ourselves so that we could look at it that way, maybe stepping stones to creating impact, just how this writing plays a role in creating future
Sure.
opportunities and impact.
Sure, that's a really, really great question. I think the first thing to be honest with is I didn't have clarity. I didn't have the connect the dots at first. This started for me when I was a kid, when I was, going through an abusive household, when I was being bullied by the kids in school, and having conversations with myself, not having the language yet or the comprehension, but having a conversation with myself saying, life can't be like this. And I think many of us have that internal voice, whether we're tuned into it or not, is like, who am I, and is there better out there? So when I was started going through, I'm going to date myself, but you know my first writings was on a steno pad, the flip pages with the, that I bought in the 99 cent, drugstore, not a CVS, because CVS's weren't around yet, right? So before Instagram and likes and all those stories, right? It was just me, pen, paper, and the truth. And when I wrote the Beautiful Soul series, I had all of that stuff. I had boxed all that, right? And the writing was not good, but it was truth. It was,
Right.
so I think that's where it starts, is learning how to listen to yourself, whether it's through writing, whether it's through videos, is listening to that voice and figuring out, like, who am I? And if you can't answer that question because that's too deep and too philosophical, it's like, what's possible with this moment I have right in front of me? And then that starts to connect the dots, so I started to learn, and I was also open. I've been coached, I've been mentored, I've been through self-development programs, some phenomenal life-changing programs that have impacted me through the years, to get clarity on who I was. And what I could share with everybody is, every time I thought I figured out who I was,
Hmm.
the universe was like, "Yeah, nope, you don't got it yet. you know, here's
Not
the next
yet.
step. You're still learning." And I'm still learning, even as we have this conversation. I say I have clarity for the next 10 years, and I do, but I don't know what's around the corner, what the next lesson is. The cancer journey was unexpected. That was
Yeah.
really powerful. And that's a whole separate conversation of how society hears the word cancer and it's like, oh no, like
Yeah.
they automatically assume it as a death sentence. But what if cancer was one of those whispers in the rain? And that's in the book.
Ah,
What if
yes.
the problems you're facing weren't problems but opportunities and blessings? Those little whispers to say, hey, you matter, you gotta work through this because there's a possibility here for you to improve. And that's where the dots start to get connected. And
Okay.
that's the message. That's the bottom line. The message is simple. We're trying. The biggest lie in the world is that life is hard. It's
Hmm.
not hard. It's actually easy. And the easiness is simply you matter. That's it. You matter, and let your
Nice.
voice shine. Own it.
Oh, I love that quote. You matter and let your voice shine. That's beautiful.
Yeah, thank
Or
you.
my children's book, the second book in the series is called Let Your Sparkle Shine.
Oh, I love
That's
that.
right. Sparkle. And hey, I called myself music, love, and light. Ooh, light. We're all of
Nice.
us. We want to add light to every situation. And when I think
Awesome.
about it with Whispers in the Rain, it's 48 lessons that you're sharing
Mhm.
with us. Um,
Yeah.
I can imagine that from one day to the next, or from one week to the next, that there are some of these lessons that resonate with you and that come up and that you
Yeah.
say, this is one of those days I can connect with that lesson. I'm just curious, what lessons have been coming up in your life
Oh,
lately,
wow.
where like what art imitates life, life then imitates art. I'm just curious with
Sure.
some of the 48 that have been popping up for you lately.
Yeah. I think the first thing to mention, and I'm so glad you brought this up because this is an assumption that people think about when they hear that title, 48 lessons. They think it's like the book is lesson one, lesson two, lesson three, like there's a linear step by step. And that's not what this book is about, because the healing journey is not linear. It's a spiral. I happen to share my story and how it unfolded for me, and the lessons are embedded in the story.
Yes.
And then there's a companion journal if you want to write and go deeper. You get that. There's a QR code to give you a free companion journal. um, I think the lessons that come up for me a lot lately is being reminded of the shadows, the shadows inside, from my childhood, that want to be seen, want to be embraced. Those past traumas aren't enemies. They're parts of me that I need to hold and say, like, if I'm if I'm doing something or feeling something negative, it's a mirror, and it's usually a voice inside of me that's like, hey, this is little Hal who's sitting on a rock crying and wants to be held and told like he's okay and he's safe right now, that he
Yeah.
is wanted and he isn't being rejected. I think that's a big thing that this book helped me to learn about myself. Like that journey of love is a little bit of a roller coaster, and it's not an external love where many people want to feel wanted and belong by their relationships and those outside external people, right? But it really starts with loving yourself. And when you say
Mhm.
loving yourself, it's more than just self-love. It's loving all the parts of yourself, the ugly parts, the painful parts, the parts that you were like, oh, was that, I don't like that version of me. Did I
The gray
actually
hair and
do that?
all. The gray hair and all, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Right. So that's a lesson that's really laid out in that journey. It's a powerful lesson. I feel that it's a muscle, right? That's the other thing about this book. It's not like you just read it and you're like, oh my God, I'm healed. This is going to be for the rest of my life, right? So it's a muscle. You go to the gym, you work
Yeah.
out, you build muscles. If you stop going to the gym, you lose those muscles. It's the same with spirituality and in positivity and loving yourself. It's a muscle that you have to consistently practice.
Right. Positive conversation, positive content, things that make us reflect and grow. You're right. It's a continuum. because people are sharing these messages, and you're making appearances, and sharing the words, the post. So if we consume that on a regular basis, that can help us stay strong. And we have a variety of ways of doing that through exposure. So we hope that our community is a Believe Retreat. We want to welcome you, because we will ask you to make a post in our community. I'll send you the link so that you can have something there, content that we can engage in. So every time we have a guest, we also ask them to share in our community, so everybody can get a little taste of Hal and
Yes.
learn about Whispers in the Rain. So I would love to follow up with that. And
And
as we are
I
building
just posted the
community,
link to our community in the chat. I'm going to go and
great.
spread it around to everybody else's socials too. So, everybody watching, please join our community because, like Hal says, it's a muscle that needs to be nurtured. And we nurture these muscles right there in our community with positive conversations and support.
Absolutely.
Yes, and the right kind of people. So we have a couple. Any before we move on to what's up next? Did either one of you have any parting words, just to put a bow on our conversation before we talk about what's next?
I'll let you go first, Francine, so I can think.
Okay, let's put a bow
See
on
how
it.
I like passed that? Passed that torch.
I love talking to other authors because books just open the world to things that you never would have thought about. And Hal and I have very much aligned missions. But when we do our anthology book, I want to see 50 authors in our anthology with totally different missions
Yeah.
because I want to read 49 other chapters that will broaden my perspective and horizons. And maybe it might be a mission I could get aligned with in the future.
Yeah.
So
Ooh.
keep watching, or, better yet, join the Believe Retreat anthology. Perfect timing, Joanna.
There we
And
go. Yeah.
I I am going to lob this ball back to Hal while I go put links in the comments of all our socials.
Okay. Yes. So how we're going to be celebrating in Jacksonville, Florida, the second week of September. And but before we get to that, let me just pull this down. Now I'm wondering, do I know how to do that? Tech help.
Tech
Let's see if we
challenge.
can. I know. Whoops. Oh boy. Let me go back. All right. I know how. Here we go. Here we
There we
come back.
go.
Thank you. But yes, so just in a word, before we go into some details about in September, I just want to know, do you have just a quick, um, you know, 15-second way to share what you want us to walk away with after your appearance today?
I, literally, I want everybody to walk away. And I have a million stories that I haven't shared about my student successes and the things that I see, what happens when you put the students at the center of learning. I just want everybody to really seriously think about how much their life matters. And if you don't think your life matters or you're not resonating with this, I want you to walk away from the fact that there's a reason that you saw this video at the time that you did see the video. I feel like the universe is very powerfully sending everybody messages. So if you're watching this, and you want to have a deeper conversation, reach out to any of us,
Yeah.
and we'll have a longer, deeper conversation, and maybe we'll provide some support for you.
Thank you so much. And so now, how is part of our support? And so, as you can see, we have an exciting Believe Retreat weekend with workshops, with good food, with networking, with really knowing how to publish something and then make impact. Yes, you wrote something. We're going to help you every step of the way with this anthology. But then what? So we're going to launch a 1-year program with Francine, with Heidi, with me, and everyone in our community has a part. So hey, just DM us. You've got our links. Look us up, and just remember It's called Believe You Can. So this is going to be a people who believed they could and did. Francine has a chapter that we've discussed, so we'll be focusing on that next week. Heidi and I have shared some chapters, and this is what I want to be parting words for everyone. The theme of believe you can, because if you can conceive an idea in your mind, you can then believe it in your heart and then put it into action with your hands. So, from your head to the heart,
Up to the heart.
yes, to the hands. Everyone, yes, you can.
Yeah.
I love
See you
that.
So,
next week.
yes, so the two of the three Believe sisters and Hal, we want to wish you a terrific Tuesday. Thanks for joining us. Take care. We'll see you next week.